one of the very few comic book characters, even back then, that was covered from head to toe. Like, if Captain America, you still have this much of his face. Spider-Man's completely enveloped in his costume.
Oh, you know the good thing about that?
Yes.
You could be any kid. You could be black. You could be Asian. You could be Indian. You could be anything. And imagine you were in that costume. So I think that made it relevant to everybody everywhere.
Okay, let's do this.
If I was to choose a character that could appeal to everyone, regardless of age, gender, or cultural background, it would probably be Spider-Man. Marvel as a brand has always been built off flawed characters because they are the things that keep their heroes relatable, flaws that we can empathize with and see ourselves in, whether it's the complicated bickering within our own family unit or dealing with very real social injustice. There are countless examples of these larger-than-life figures enduring the same daily struggles, and Spider-Man is probably the most pure distillation of this method. Because, well, he is one of us, the everyman, the working-class hero. He's not a god of mythology, not a sentient tree, or a genius billionaire playboy philanthropist. He deals with relationship troubles, money issues, and just trying to keep all your responsibilities in check that pretty much every young adult has to face. It just so happens he has to handle all these real troubles while doing all the things a spider can. These stories have been remolded and updated countless times over the near 6 decades since he first appeared in Amazing Fantasy 15, but that tangible quality has always been a cornerstone of the character's mythology. In whatever era or medium, even the very concept of Spider-Man can be and has been shaped into pretty much anything, and when these creators really nail this, it brings out the best of what makes this character great. A universal coming-of-age story that, regardless of what point in life we are at, can see and connect with. Now, if you've been on the internet for any length of time, you've probably seen that people can be a bit abrasive when it comes to their favorite interpretation. And truthfully, I love the idea that there is a Spider-Man for everyone. I have mine and you'll have yours, but I think one of the biggest omissions that gets lost in these discussions is the sentimentality. Maybe it's the ever-changing landscape, maybe it's because I've been slowly drifting away from superhero media in recent times, but this year had 2 stories come out that rejuvenated my love for the genre. One was aggressively grim, pessimistic, with a real heart buried underneath all the layers of meta parody. And the other wore that heart on its sleeve and reminded me why I love these kinds of stories. Now, cards on the table, I originally wasn't planning on getting Spider-Man Miles Morales, let alone doing a video on it because of my commitment to university and part-time work, but after finishing that ever-terrifying careers assignment, I wanted to treat myself. In fact, if you've been working hard these last few months, treat yourself to something nice this Christmas. You deserve it. And with that, I bit the bullet and got Insomniac's new game on my PlayStation 4, because student finance isn't until January and hashtag #UniLife or something like that. And really wasn't going in expecting much, as I was one of the few who weren't head over heels in love with Spider-Man PS4. There was plenty to appreciate about it, from the traversal, how the storyline played on existing knowledge of character dynamics, as well as seeing all this through the eyes of an older Peter Parker gave the setup for a great package. But for me, got hampered down a lot of repetitive objectives, some really jarring moments of pacing that brought the momentum to a halt, and at the time, I really couldn't shake the nagging feeling that the clear influence from a certain other superhero adaptation robbed a lot of novelty from the end product for me. The team had built a great foundation for something spectacular. All it needed was to trim some of the fat and refine the working systems. And right from the opening moments, Insomniac have proven once again how much they understand this world and its characters. The first game gave us this window into the life of a more experienced Spider-Man, an expertly executed one-take that glides through a bedroom stuffed with history, that gave us everything we needed to know. And this continues through to our first scene with Miles. We start in a train that totally isn't based on Persona 5. Shut up, guys. You know there's other games besides Persona 5. It's not the originator of everything, you know. And slowly move onto the streets of Harlem with the people we will be learning to protect, just doing a standard errand. Then, immediately, we get the call to action, and the first thing we are asked to do is just swing. I can't stress enough how great this marriage of cinematic language and gameplay merge together like clockwork. We don't just see how Miles differs from Peter with his more hectic parkour style of swinging and fighting, but also how this translates into the interactions with the people of Harlem. I really don't want to use that meme that's been used so many times that has lost all purpose, but the game actively makes you feel like you're a member of this tight-knit community. Every side quest is related in some form to helping the locals with their problems that they face, whether it's saving the other Spider-Man, that's a cat, maintaining the Shelter of Feast, and this super endearing section with the deaf Haley. It really does make you feel like a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Like I said in my Bully video, any world the player inhabits can be just as important a character, and seeing how the citizens slowly warm up to their new hero is incredibly satisfying. It's a reminder in the good that we can share with the community and family around us. Having the story set at Christmas does more than just give the next-gen setting a facelift, but also brings in that focus on connection. Speaking of those characters, I won't go too much into spoilers, but I like the direction that was taken with this interpretation of the Tinkerer. The reveal, thankfully, isn't treated as too much of a surprise when it happens early on, and just gets us to the conflict more quickly, and I do think this is one of those areas that benefits from the shorter runtime, removing a lot of the annoying puzzles but still manages to keep the core intact. It's a story that's not afraid to pull punches or make us deal with the consequences of our actions. Now, Miles is very much a reactive protagonist. He's dealing with whatever gets thrown his way, whether it's the heckles from a certain podcaster providing one-sided anecdotes on your exploits to more significant ones, like Finn's desire to take down the higher-ups in society that goes down a darker path as the game continues. The hero and villain dynamic is deeply rooted in this complicated friendship of wanting to accept each other, but also how the different perspectives they have on the world means they can never really see eye to eye. I don't think it's a coincidence how Insomniac uses their dual personas to highlight this difference in their viewpoints. The Tinkerer genuinely has a point. She has as valid a reason as anyone for taking her extreme measures, as any large corporate brand sees a minority as meaningless, like they don't deserve their place in the world, and this justifiable anger is intensified but leads to arguably more harm than good being achieved, because these noble intentions can be lost in that drive to succeed. Miles, on the other hand, has two masks: himself, the kid who needs to be there for everyone, and the man who wants to fill the shoes of an icon. This difference is seen in many ways, from his first suit looking kinda silly to the more subtle feelings of inadequacy being compared to the other Spider-Man. He could have easily gone down this same path of vengeance, being so single-minded that it breaks the connections in both his lives, becomes just like the others who use that rage to justify those actions. But he chooses to see the good in people, and by the end truly inhabits the hero role, not to fill a slot, but as his own man. Having a flashback that just so happens to show a similar relationship trajectory solidifies this ultimately sad truth that, as much as we want things to stay the same, we can't stay in the same place. At some point, we all have to deal with the inevitability of growing apart. This is what makes the fight feel more engaging, being more than just an exchange of fists, but a clash of ideologies. Having a less fleshed out conflict would rob this fight of its emotional weight, because the spectacle is the surface level enjoyment, but it's the ideas and the motives is what will stay with you. Now, all things considered, I don't think Miles Morales is a perfect game. A lot of the side content still falls into the collect these items or enemy dungeon variety. The real antagonist of the piece just feels really one note, especially when compared to everyone else. But I think this ties into the main reason for me wanting to talk about this game. For the most part, when I go into making videos, I usually want it to be about something special. Maybe a moment that spoke to me, or how a series got me through a tough period of life, or maybe just try to understand myself a little better through all this, putting it simply, all this writing and editing, which often feels rudimentary when looking at the inspirations behind this channel. But when playing Miles Morales, I felt that this was just what I needed right now, something to help blow off steam after a long day of work. A reminder about the good in people and how these connections will get us through our day-to-day struggles. It may not be my favorite Spider-Man, but it could be for someone else. And I think that's really cool. One thing that I feel gets lost in a lot of media criticism, especially online, is this attempt to make everything objective, that we must grade everything with a score that can only be good or bad. And in all this, I get the feeling we're drifting further away from actually enjoying the media we consume, just seeing it as a prop for arguing. Sometimes just taking a step back and enjoying the stories we like doesn't have to be put under a microscope. I think there is room for all kinds of perspectives from all kinds of people, because there will be all kinds of Spider-Men for whoever is out there, and these stories will always be something to remind us of good we can find in others and in ourselves. I mean, as the man himself said,
You could be any kid.
Hey guys, Mark here. Thanks for watching another one of Comiskey's projects. I've been spending so much time on photo mode that I had a full section just about the different suits and how you can place light sources within the frame. Who knows, maybe someday I'll have to do a video on photo modes or cinematography in video games. God, I have to start writing these things down. If you made it this far into the video, I really appreciate your willingness to put up with my weird voice. Audio is probably one of the bits of video making that I'm still struggling with, and so much of these videos is literally me just experimenting with all the effects. On a side note, here in Northern Ireland we have entered a 2-week circuit breaker to reduce infections, but all things considered, we seem to be doing much better, and going into Christmas, well, it can often be a bit of a sad time for everyone, so I just want to take a second to say, you're doing good. Treat yourself to something nice this Christmas. You've been through a lot, so it's okay to treat yourself. With all that being said, this brings our broadcast to a close, so as always, stay fun, stay creative, stay humble.